Recording. Thank you, Willala. So apologies from Councillor Campbell, and as Vice Chair and Co-Chair, I'm going to chair this meeting this morning. Do we have any declarations of interest?
I didn't receive any declarations of interest, Chair.
Okay, so no declarations of interest received. So just to note, today is Armistice Day, the 11th of the 11th, and we will be holding a 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock. So just to note, whoever's speaking, I will just call the meeting to a halt at 11 and we'll observe that 2 minutes of silence. So I think we're going to, unless we've got somebody from the fire service waiting, they've not come in, we will go straight to item 4, which is yourself, Willie.
Thank you, Chair. This item is a due invitation to pay. So it was agreed at the Area Committee in June 2023 that a review of the process would take place after the first year of implementation. So community councils were invited to respond to a survey in September 2024 to gather their experiences and comments on the process of accessing these funds. In summary, feedback from community councils indicates that the process of accessing funds from the council is straightforward. Collaborative with development trusts is working well, although in some cases projects identified for funding are being delivered by community bodies other than the local development trust. So for that reason, it is recommended that other community bodies are enabled to make applications for these funds supported by the community council. A further review of the allocation process will take place next year when the area place plan is complete, as it may identify agreed community priorities. To ensure that community councils are aware of the funds available, annual correspondence will be sent out at the start of each financial year, and a table of the current balances is at point 8 in your report. Members are invited to consider the recommendations, and I'd be happy to take any questions now. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, do we have any questions, members, or observations? No. So the only comment I would make is I think this is really good. The quite a few of the communities did have questions, and thank you to all the officers who have dealt with that. And I think it's really good that this will be reviewed again in a year once we've got the police plans in. So we are asked to approve the change to the process for applications as in the report, and note that community councils will get annual correspondence at the start of the financial year, and a further review will take place of the allocation process next year when the police plan is complete. So are we happy to agree that, members? Okay, thank you. That was very quick.
I've just had a message from Margaret Ross, so she's actually still on the Caithness committee, and she's on next. So, given that Fire's not here yet, I don't know whether Elijah you want to pause the recording, if that's possible.
I think
Yeah,
that probably
I
would,
can do that.
We can remain online until Margaret's able to join us, or if the Fire come in. That's okay.
Yeah, we can approve, if you agree, Chair, item 6 and 7, and then we will see if we can get the fire officer, Margaret.
Okay, yeah. So no, I'm happy to do that. So item 6 is the ward discretionary budget. Just to note that these applications have been improved since the last committee on the 12th of August. That was Dorney District Community Trust, Community Shop and Cafe, £796.79. Achmore Community Hall Association, Hall Energy Efficiency Measure, £750. And Conton Community Trust, Seniors Festive Lunch and the Kids Christmas Parties, that was £700. So are we happy to note that? Noted. Okay, thank you. And do we want to go on to item 7 and just note the minutes as well? So there was the minutes of the meeting of the last committee were circulated, and it's just really for noting they were approved by council, by full council on the 19th of September at full council. So just to note that. Okay, and then if we agree, pause the recording until we are able to get the next speaker in.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is us resuming the meeting, and we now have Mike Collier who has joined us. But we are just coming up for 11 o'clock. So we will, at 11 o'clock, we will observe 2 minutes of silence, which is being observed across the whole Highland Council area. So welcome, Margaret. We're just going to observe 2 minutes of silence. Okay. Just to comment before we go on that in this rural communities where we are, and those of us members that have been out and had the honour of laying wreaths at these memorials, the impact of the wars on these tiny villages has been huge and wiped out generations of young folk. So it's important to remember them. Okay, Mike, can we hand over to you now for your report? Thank you.
Okay, Chair, many thanks, and thank you for that, and thank you for your kind words as well to our war dead and those who have fought for our country. We have a number who often join the fire services after their careers as well, so we're very much aligned to that as well. We present wreaths. So in regards ourselves for a report, there's a new reporting format. So the covering letter, I'll take it as that you've all read the report and you've read the covering letter. There is a little bit that I'll just go in there about what the performance report shows. Our accidental dwelling fires are low, again 5 for the reporting period, nothing significant. Working with partner agencies to ensure that we respond to these and we provide the after response as well through that post-domestic incident response model and home fire safety visits, as well as any agency referrals were required. We had 2 deliberate fires within the Wester Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh area. What I will say is wildfires, deliberate fires, have been particularly low this year. Whether that's weather related, as we know, it's not been the greatest summer we've had, and we're back into the muir bird season, so we'll be keeping an eye on that as we go. UFAS, which is our unwanted fire alarm signals, obviously since we changed our operating model in respect to that, that has greatly reduced the amount of turnouts we do to that, which is allowing us scope to carry out some other extra work within the organisation. It's always particularly low in our area on the remote rural. The one that actually probably is more relevant now is that the road traffic collisions have increased. We've seen an increase across Scotland, and obviously, Chair, I know you work quite closely with Marie, and there has been a real shift in Scottish Government to try and identify why that has been the case. I don't think we've got a clear answer about that yet. Maybe we have had some lower years, and this is just maybe a little bit of a spike, because we had a spike 2 or 3 years ago as well. However, we will continue to work with our partner agencies. We will research as to what that's happening and provide support where we can to do that. We have road safety schemes for new drivers as well, and try and have that early intervention that allows people to look at how they use and utilise our roads in a more responsible fashion, should I say. We do know that several of our road traffic collisions tend to be tourism. Most of these tend to be low speed, which don't have an extremely negative outcome. We do tend to find, unfortunately, there's more of our localised based community members that are more of the higher speed impacts. So we will certainly be engaging with them over that. Other than that, we then move on to talk about our our stations, our availability, and our staffing models. This continues to be a challenging model for ourselves here. We've got a couple of stations which are really quite at a position where it's very difficult to maintain the 100% availability. We've got, as I look across here, we've got Kinlochhew, which has had a number of staff leave through retirements and resignations. And we've looked at how we're moving towards a joint mobilising protocol with Kinlochhew and Torridon to allow that to improve. The other station, Applecross, again, when you look at how we've dropped to 5 people, and we had this chat, Liz, sorry, Chair, I apologise, yourself,
Okay.
but Marie, in regards the sort of endemic issues, the social problems that were causing that, the housing, the challenges, and we understand that. So we have continued to look at that and how we can manage to do that better. So as an organisation and working with the National Fire Chiefs Council, we are trying to find a model that's better suited to the needs of the people and the people that want to work for us. And hopefully we'll see that in the coming months and years as a vastly improved way of working. And as it stands, we have 2 new appliances in the area. Lochcarron has a medium weight rescue appliance, brand new, and has been well received. And then Altby, they got given a full size fire appliance rather than the rapid response unit they had, which actually suited both stations we changed over with. Kinlochleven even got that instead, and it suited them better and allowed us a different resource in that area. So the other thing that we continue to do is we've just recently completed the annual Lochhew radiation test, and crews were involved and personnel were involved in that as well. So all positive for your area, generally speaking. But as it stands, I'm more than happy to take any questions, and if I can't answer at this time, I certainly will find out and come back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I don't mind you call me Liz, that's not a problem. Any questions or comments? No, so I have I've got a few. One is you kind of covered it. That was the issue about the recruitment. And I think I did try and flag that up with all the community councils to see if you could get more retained staff. I can put that out again to the community councils to see if you can maybe come and I think it would be good if you could speak, or somebody, I know you're busy, could speak with them directly. I don't know if you've had any progress with that at community level.
So if it's okay to come in there, Chair.
Yeah.
all of my station commanders and my on-call support watch commanders seek to attend these community councils and have these conversations. We're finding, as we discussed at the time, that there's a common theme amongst some of the concerns of members of the community working to saying that 120 hours, that 90 hours, that demand that you place upon us for our training courses, etc. We find that a little challenging. Come the 1st of January, there is a new terms and conditions which will allow a reduced number of hours requirement for people. We're also looking at opportunities for how we deliver training courses in a fashion which suits the community members better, rather than ask them to go away for 2 weeks. Can we, for example, ask them to do 2 or 3 weekends and have it work that way? So there is an understanding nationally that this is extremely challenging. We've also looked at how we can does each model suit that station area? Should it be a different type of model that we have as well? So all these are being played through our on-call improvement group that we have in the Central Belt, working for the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service. A number of officers are involved in that, and there's a lot feeds into that. So I'm expecting some strands to come out of that in due course, which will hopefully support our area in particular, because of the remote rural aspect. Doesn't take away from the fact that we know that there are challenges with people living in the area, remaining in the area because of lack of work, etc., and housing. And those are obviously challenges that are probably a requirement further above within Scottish Government to try and address.
Yeah. My second question is, so it's quite a wide one, but it is something that is coming up at quite a lot of the community councils, and that is the applications for the battery energy storage facilities. And there's quite a lot of concern around the potential of fire, and have we got the facilities to deal with it, given the type of fires that they can cause. So I don't know how much you can comment on that, but I think I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely, Chair. You're not the first committee to ask this, and you won't be the last by any means. I think it's like any new item, a new product that comes along, there's a concern about what the effects of that are if it goes wrong. And generally speaking, we don't tend to hear all the good news that the site's managed fine, all the systems are in place, everything is protected, there's legislation around that, there's guidance for them, there's visits go on from authorities to ensure that they're robust. Because what happens is you tend to see there's been a fire and it's glorified. And yes, whilst I concur, like any of these new technologies we have, these renewables, there are different challenges, and sometimes the instant type we go to is more protracted than we would expect. We know that lithium-ion batteries, for example, are a real concern, not only within these environments, but domestically in houses and within vehicles, because of that thermal runway that allows them to continue to burn when we think they're extinguished. So what I will say is, and Willie there, Councillor McKinnon sitting there, is well aware that I've been challenged multiple times on Sky about this by Councillor Miller, who had real concerns. And I see that raises a smile, Chair. And you are quite right to be concerned for your community. I presented at Highland Scrutiny Committee for the local senior officer, and there was a presentation within that that discusses how we are addressing that. Because it is something that, because of the geography of the area, and I know we have one that's just been approved for Lochalsh, maybe not saying that correctly, but I know that's been approved. So they're coming up in Skye, they're coming up there, they're coming up Thurso, they're coming up in the Illness area, and they will continue to pop up all over the place. What I can assure you is that as an organisation, we are very much at the forefront of dealing with these renewable technologies, understanding the requirements, learning from lessons learned where we have seen some of these incidents down in England, which have resulted in quite significant incident types. And that learning has taken us forward to be more adapted. The legislation that is in place ensures that nobody can actually go ahead and build one of these without having all these robust controls and measures put in place anyway prior to establishing a site. So they also want to work with us. I know in Skye we're working very closely with them. So I can, if you wish, for the group, pass across the part of the document that was given to the Highland Scrutiny Committee, and you can understand that. I am always, as are any of my team, happy to sit down and chat through with you about this, because as we move towards, maybe apart from our American colleagues, a more climate-based and recognises some of the challenges that we have going forward environmentally, there will be more of these renewables start to appear and these storage systems, and we will work quite closely with you to address them and alleviate any of your concerns where it's possible to do so.
Yeah, no, that's really good and really reassuring, and I think knowledge and information is key. I think there's so many unknowns, so if you could pass that information over, that would be really good. I know that I think there's a general document from the National Service that is now attached to planning applications, but there's not a report on individual applications from the fire service, but there is sort of general advice out there. So any information and would, I think, be really appreciated by the communities.
So what I would share is, what I would say, Chair, is it's like any application that comes forward. They go through a governance route, as you know. So, if it's a B&B, for example, or it's a hotel, or it's a battery energy storage system, every one of them has to go through a process which says that each of the partner agencies involved have fed back their opinion and direction of requirements. So when it comes to the architect goes, right, what's the fire risk assessment area of this? Where do fire become involved, and how do fire feel about that? And our legislative team will look at it as well, and they will ask for any concerns to be addressed before the planning's approved. So we are wholly involved in that at that planning application stage.
That's really reassuring to know. And I'll actually make sure, as this is a publicly recorded meeting, I will actually direct communities to your presentation, because I think that will be useful information for them. Thank you. Any more questions or observations for Mike? No, in that case, thank you very much for your presentation, Mike, and for all the work that you and your team do. We appreciate it. You keep us safe. Thank you.
And I'll just, reciprocal, thank you for all your support. Each intern, the support that we get from you really helps us do our jobs, so we really appreciate that as well. Okay,
thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. So, members, I think we have, looking around my screen, we have Margaret Ross from Housing. Just get back onto my agenda. Which is item number 5, the Housing Management Performance Report. Hello, Margaret.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I'm chairing in Biz's absence, and we've got Councillor Burt, Councillor Logue in attendance as well. So we'll just pass over to yourself. Thanks.
Okay, good morning, members. Thank you for having me. You are asked this morning to note the information provided on the Housing Performance Report for the period 1st of April 2024 to the 30th of September. We've got a new style report for you today, which I hope you'll find interesting. We've made quite significant changes to the report. Historically, housing management teams and building maintenance teams produced a shared performance report. However, going forward, it's been decided to split those reports. So this means that the housing management team will report to your committee Q2 and Q4, and the building maintenance team will report to your committee Q1 and Q3. I think the report, you'll find it's much more specific to certain work areas, and it'll allow you to have much more detailed scrutiny of our performance. So I'll run through the report and I hope you enjoy it. It went down well at the Caithness Committee an hour ago, so hopefully you'll feel similar. So a wee bit of background: the Scottish Housing Regulator sets out the performance indicators that it uses to scrutinise landlords. And the report that you're going to hear today provides key performance indication based on the reporting framework recommended by the Scottish Housing Regulator. We move on to rent arrears. So rent arrears in Wester Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh have come down from Q1 and are lower in the same quarter in the previous year. Now, We're working in a fairly challenging environment, I have to say. There's a mass migration of benefit claimants to universal credit, and that is without question having a big impact across Highland. Maybe lesser so in the figures you're seeing today, but there is an impact, and there will be an ongoing impact. So table 2 shows you the gross rent arrears as a percentage of rent due, and you'll note that that includes current and former tenant arrears and arrears that have been written off. So as a bit of a benchmark, the Scottish Housing Network's figure is 6.86%. The Highland-wide figure is 7.43%, and the area we're interested in this morning is sitting below both of those figures at 5.36%. Table 3 shows the current arrears in the area that we're interested in this morning, split into arrears level bands. And it's quite clear to see that the majority of those cases that we carry have arrears less than £500, which suggests to me that the fact that Universal Credit pays 5 weekly in arrears is certainly impacting in those figures. Then table 4 gives you an idea snapshot of the rent actions that we've taken. And you'll see that in April 2024, the Scottish Government lifted the embargo, if you like, on the issuing of notices of intent to resecure possession following the pandemic, and that freed us in a way to start to think about more serious action to try to control these rent arrears. So that's why you're seeing a fairly substantial increase in the issuing of notices. A bit of an increase in court actions, which, you know, they have to happen if we can't control the rent arrears, and one eviction. We're certainly not looking to increase that eviction figure. We will continue to try to support our tenants to the very best of our ability and avoid court action at all costs, actually, but we do have to control rent arrears. So the local housing team hold regular review meetings focused on the highest rent arrears cases. And during those meetings, we agree the approach that we're going to take on a case-by-case basis, taking note of vulnerability and any other factor that's of importance. Table 5, we move on to antisocial behaviour cases. There aren't a huge number of cases in the area that we're interested in today, but there are some. Some of them take longer to close than others. Some are more complex than others. But it's a key priority for the local housing team. Management of cases is often complex, and quite often it's a multi-agency approach that needs to be taken to solve some of these cases. Homelessness. There were 365 presentations across Highland at the end of quarter 2. 12 of these presentations were in Wester Ross, Strathpeffer and Lochalsh. And table 9 moves us on to allocations. You can see the number of allocations that were completed at the end of quarter 2. And I think we were all a bit surprised that it was a bit lower than normal. We had a good look at the allocations, and it's simply a case that there have been less void properties available to us to allocate. Simple as that. Sometimes you can't predict turnover. And that's the report. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Are you shaking your head, Chris? Patrick? Well,
Is it more interesting? Is it more interesting?
I like the report.
Good.
I think it's quite snappy, actually. I think it's more focused and gives the information we want at a much quicker glance. So
Yeah,
I think it's
so.
good. I have a question, and I should know this, but I'm going to have to ask you to explain it to me. Universal Credit takes over the rent payments, the housing payment that is normally paid by Highland Council, but they pay it differently. Can you just explain it? I'm just a wee bit lost.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So traditionally, housing benefit was paid weekly. So those that needed help with their rent made a claim for housing benefit, and the Highland Council hold a fund of money that they, on a weekly basis, paid into people's rent accounts.
Right.
So in theory, those on housing benefit, they tended not to carry significant arrears. It was paid weekly in advance, and as long as people were able to supply their ID and everything that's involved in getting a successful claim in, then the rent would be paid in a fairly timeous manner. Then along comes universal credit. So it's important to note that it's only for working age people. And within the one benefit, the universal credit benefit, there is a housing element, and that is basically the rental payment. And in order to return some sort of responsibility to tenants to pay their own rent, it was decided that the housing element would, in many, many cases, be paid direct to the tenant. And unfortunately, it's paid 5 weekly in arrears. And then that tenant pays the Highland Council. So there's two aspects of it if you're thinking about rent arrears. One, it's paid some weeks in arrears. So by the time the first payment comes through, they are sitting 4 to 5 weeks in arrears. And secondly, some people aren't very good at managing their finances. Now, there are lots of mitigating actions we can take if somebody has significant rent arrears or falls within tier 1 or tier 2 with a certain vulnerability. We can certainly go straight to the DWP and ask for that payment to be made direct to us via what they call an alternative payment arrangement, and we certainly do that. But the fact remains is it's a much more challenging climate, not only for landlords but also for tenants. And at the moment, there is a mass migration of anybody who traditionally claimed ESA across Highland. And as I explained to the Catholics Committee a wee while ago, I met with the DWP early this morning because the team are telling me that they're carrying so many, many more rent arrears due to universal credit claimants. The numbers are increasing. And the DWP agreed this morning, yes, there is a big operation in place to now migrate all ESA claimants. Job seekers allowance claimants have almost finished their migration. They're now looking at ESA. So it's going to continue to have an impact without question of doubt.
Okay.
Does that help you understand it?
It does. It does, because I always thought that the housing part of the benefit that was paid by us, but now
What
it's
do you
all
mean by us? Do you mean by the Highland Council?
by the local, by local authority. But did we just pay it? But it came from.
It came via
Was it always a
grant, didn't it?
DWP payment? That's what I'm asking.
It came via a grant to the Highland Council. Yes, it was to administer the payment of rental payments via housing benefit, and that has all fundamentally changed.
Okay, yeah. No, it has had quite an impact on quite a few vulnerable people.
Yes, I know. But the important thing is you should encourage your constituents to speak to us. There are very, very few problems that we can't solve when it comes to rent.
Yeah.
You know, there are alternative ways to do things, but the very, very important thing is we must keep lines of communication open.
Yeah.
The very serious cases are frankly where people have shut down and have refused to communicate with us. Speak to your local team, encourage your constituents to speak to the local team, and we'll be able to offer lots of different areas of support.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. Yeah. My other question has come to me from one part of the ward. They're asking, so we get these figures and it's Ward 5, but I've had a specific area within Ward 5, so one community council area, saying they want a breakdown in housing information for that area. Do you have that level of kind of granular breakdown?
I don't, but I can take your query forward and we can speak to the systems team and see what we can produce, but I couldn't give you that detail this morning.
Okay, right. I will email you, and I'm quite open. It was the Lochalsh area that we're asking.
Pass the inquiry over and I will
I'll email
direct
you.
it appropriately.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So any more questions for Margaret? Chris looks like he's coming on. No, you're mute, Chris.
I know. I couldn't get the cursor to get to the right place. This is a very vague sort of question, but I'm very unclear about the relationship between you in terms of meeting housing need and planning. I mean, there are plenty of community councils I deal with who very much they're very much aware of the need for more social housing in their areas, and in some cases they have a bit of land that they identify as being suitable for that.
Yeah.
How does this all tie up?
I'll not be the best person to answer that question, Councillor Burt. I will explain to you that I am in charge, or I manage the team who manage the existing stock and the existing tenants.
Yes.
But you will be very aware just now of the housing challenge that has been launched.
Yes.
You'll probably have more information than me.
Yes.
So, you know, the Highland Council made 6 commitments to address the region's housing challenge. And one of those challenges was looking for sites.
Yes.
Yeah, so national and local government, together with the private sector and interests from the energy sector, housing development and commerce, have all been asked to focus on the need for more housing. And the Highland Council have made a commitment to double our current housing supply and accelerate the availability of both public and private housing and the availability of sites. So I think what I'm saying is that housing challenge is of the moment.
Yes.
And I am sure that I'll be able to, given time, help you direct the community council to who they should be speaking to about those sites. But from personally, I manage the team who manage the existing stock that we have. But there's heaps of work going on behind the scenes to increase housing supply, because we know.
I'm so glad to hear it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Much needed.
Yeah. Yeah. So have a look at the housing challenge. It's hugely interesting. Does that help?
Thank you for that. Yes. So
You're welcome.
Can go.
Okay. I'll just thank you, Margaret, and thank you also for always being at the end of a phone.
You're
when
welcome.
I call. You are my go-to person, and I know it's challenging. I wish that I could just build houses everywhere. Hopefully we will be able to make a difference, but you deal with some very challenging cases, and you're always there, and you're always ready to listen and give advice, so we really appreciate that.
You're welcome, and I appreciate the feedback, and I'll feedback the teams too, because they all work very hard.
Please do, they do. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
lovely.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So, sorry, I should have said that report was for noting members. I'll be happy to note Margaret's report. So I think if I can get back to my agenda, that oops. I think that brings us back to, we've covered that. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting, because I think we've covered everything else that was on the meeting. So that concludes the meeting. Thank you, everybody, and we shall see you at the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.